We're going to be looking in the book of Psalms this morning. We're going to be actually in the 4th Psalm. And you want to keep your Bible open there because there's another psalm just a little bit down the way you'll want to turn to also that I forgot to put in the PowerPoint. So you're going to do a little work this morning, okay? Last week I was blessed to receive an invitation to participate in or to attend Jameson Bloom's Eagle Scout ceremony. He's going to be recognized in just next week or the week after? 2 weeks. That's what I was thinking. It was a couple of weeks away. He's not here this morning, but that's an exciting time. He's had a lot of requirements put into it. My scouting career was short and sweet, and I was a weevil. I was a weevil of sort of that in-between of Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and we moved and all of that, so I wasn't able to continue on very long, but I was in there long enough to learn how to use compass and to navigate with a compass. A compass is an interesting thing, and I don't know how much you've really looked at one before, but just think with me about this for a few moments. It of course has a pivoting needle there in the center, and what's special about that needle? It's magnetic, and it points at one end is always going to, if you get it flat where that needle can float, it's going to find magnetic north, okay? And you can always tell where north is. And with some basic knowledge of where you are and which direction you want to go, a compass can literally save your life. It can help you get out of the woods, get out of a jam. Stopping to study a compass is one way to find your bearings. It helps you get oriented to where you are, where you want to go. Plot a course from where you are to where you need to be. And of course other things like maps help too, but a compass is something to really think about. Now if you look at the face of the compass, the needle isn't the only thing you see, right? We also see 4 points that are marked, and of course you do understand that if the needle is pointing that way and you turn the end that way, that doesn't mean north is that way, right? North is always going to be up towards where that needle points, and I don't want to get too complicated, but that points toward magnetic north, and true north is not exactly the same. And you got that's some of the stuff you got to learn about that. But you have these what we call the 4 points of the compass: north, south, east, and west. And by lining that end up with the needle where it is, then you're able to sort of calculate it, to figure out exactly where you need to go. And not only on one you're actually going to use for navigating, they're going to be very careful with all those marks that go around the side, because each of them represents one of the 360 degrees of the compass. And you can go so many degrees off from north toward the east and the west and all of that. It's a little bit more complex than that, but I think you get the idea that a compass is more than just a little toy that you get when you get enough tickets at the pizza place. Something like that. It's something that can literally save your life. The thought of compass, the thought of following that needle that always points north in the 4 basic directions, it really came to me as something that I could see as I read here in the 4th Psalm. The Psalm of David does not tell us what was specifically going on in his life at the time. We don't know if he wrote this when he was a shepherd boy, or a mighty warrior, a man on the run, or a powerful king. Where in his life this falls, we just are not told. But it allows us to look and to learn how David would focus and orient himself in the crises of his life. And rather than having the 4 points of this compass, north and south, east and west, I want to share with you the 4 points that David used to orient himself, to get his spiritual bearings no matter what was going on in his life, and then to chart a way forward. And those 4 points, you're going to see them come up here in the PowerPoint in a moment. If you want to jot them down, they are above, against, alongside, and within. Above, against, alongside, and within. Let's read the psalm and consider what David has to say to us this morning. Look at Psalm 4, beginning in verse 1. Answer me when I call to you, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. Oh, how long will you people turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. Many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. Fill my heart with joy when their grain and new wine abound. In peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. As David orients himself in the face of a crisis, the first point of the compass that he sets, his spiritual bearing, is that is above. That is above. He looks to find his spiritual north, if you will. As I said a few moments ago, we're not given any specifics about what was going on in David's life at the time he composed this song. If you know his story, you know that there were plenty of different times that he could have been going through difficulties like this. But whatever is going on, David does the spiritual equivalent of taking out his compass and finding which way is north. And he finds it, we see, by praying. Look at verse 1 again. Answer me when I call to you, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. This is an interesting psalm. It's a psalm that gives us an insight into his heart and how he faces difficulties and trials. And notice that this isn't a panic prayer. David isn't crying out, God, where are you? He knows right where he is. And more than that, he knows right who he is. He knows who God is. There is an expectation we see first here in the passage. David has no doubt that God will answer when he cries out to him. Why? It's because he is convinced that God is righteous. God is true. God is unchanging. He's not devious. He's not cruel. He's faithful. He can be counted on no matter the circumstances. Even if David may question the outcome of his situation, he will not question the God he follows. You see, I think a lot of people today, we still haven't really made up our mind, can we trust the God we say we follow? And the interesting thing is that on this side of Jesus' life and death and resurrection, on this side of Calvary, we have the answer Because Jesus tells us, you've seen me, you've seen the Father, you've seen His character. You know that it's sacrificial, redeeming love. You know that it's power, even over the grave. This is the God we serve. And David understands that. He has this expectation that God is faithful. God is true. He'll not let him down. You are my righteous God. But notice there's not only this expectation, there is also an honesty. An honesty about himself. David, of all people, he could have talked about what he has done for God. He could have talked about what he has done for God's people at that point in time. But instead, he humbly confesses his need for relief from his distress. His need for mercy in the face of his sins. I want you to turn over to Psalm 17, not very far away, and look with me at a very similar psalm of David that lets us know that this was a common tactic in his praying. He looked to God, he had a confidence in God, and he admitted his own needs. In Psalm 17, beginning in verse 6, it says, I call on you, my God, for you will answer me. Turn your ear to me and hear my prayer. He has that expectation I spoke of a moment ago. Show me the wonders of your great love, you who save by your right hand, those who take refuge in you from their foes, those who humble themselves and admit how desperately they need God's help. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings from the wicked who are out to destroy me, from my mortal enemies who surround me. Those same two things are there. There's expectation, God will do it, and there's honesty. God, I desperately need you. I would just say to you that if in his crisis time, the great man of God, David, needed, first of all, to establish his spiritual north, to look above. If he needed to do it, don't you reckon we do too? We do too. We need to look to God. We need to cry out and ask for his help. And so the first step of finding our spiritual bearings must always be to look above. To the God who is faithful, the God who is true, to humbly say, God help me. First and foremost, God help me. The next thing David does, it's a bit surprising, frankly. That's because the second direction he turns is to identify those who are against him, who are against his success in whatever situation he's going to. Look again at verse 2. How long will you people turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Again, this focus is surprising. As I read this and I think about it, and I go, why in the world? And he's prayed to God, and all of a sudden he's talking to the people who are opposing him. It's a peculiar sort of thing. We really don't think about this. Psalm 17, that other one we just read, it did the same thing though. He talks about those who oppose him. He calls them there his mortal enemies. He identifies them. Now, maybe when we go through difficulties and trials, we don't have that sort of opposition. We don't have people who have a knife or a sword ready to slit our throat, so to speak. And so we really don't identify with this, but let us not be mistaken. Living life the way God desires, the way God will bless, is guaranteed to bring opposition. It's guaranteed to bring opposition. And what's more, it's very hard to recognize it because often today it is opposition with the best of intentions. It's opposition with the best of intentions. People who care about us saying, oh, don't do it that way. Take this moral shortcut. Everyone is doing it that way. Mark my words. If you are earnestly seeking to follow the Lord, to do what He is leading you to do, someone who says they love you and they only want the best for you is going to say you're headed the wrong way. Has anyone ever experienced that? I remember when the Lord called me to preach, and I fought against it for a long while. And my senior year in high school, I finally said, okay, God. And I had been working at the Wynn's Five and Dime store there in Smithville, and I quit that to concentrate on some other things at school. But I went into the store one day, and the store manager saw me, and he said, Jay, I heard that you're going to be a preacher? Yes, I think that's what God wants me to do. He goes, you're too smart for that. He had the best in mind, but it wasn't God's choice. That's hard. It'd almost be easier to look at those who have a sword drawn and say, I'm not going to listen to you. But when there are people who claim to honestly have your best in mind, and as best they understand it, they do. They're opposite. They're against it. Just understand that. David prays. He identifies those who are against him. Remember that Jesus had to look at one of his closest disciples, Peter, and say, get behind me, Satan. Because at that moment, he wasn't thinking about the things of God. You're going to have opposition if you get oriented to what God wants in your life. But there's something else that we need to see in the passage. Don't miss this, because David also recognized, not only were those who opposed him, but he saw he wasn't alone in seeking to do what God desired. He had fellow believers, fellow pilgrims, who were alongside him. He wasn't by himself. One of the most lonely people in all of Scripture is the prophet Elijah, after that great victory against the prophets of Baal. And he went off and he went way out in the wilderness. And God confronted him and said, what's going on? And he goes, I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm the only one that's obedient to you. And God told him, there's 7,000 that haven't yet bowed down to you. We're not alone. That doesn't mean that these other people were able to bear David's load. Maybe they won't be able to bear our load. Sometimes we are the one who has to end up encouraging them. Look at verse 4. That's what he does here. Tremble and do not sin. When you are on your bed, search your hearts and be silent. He's talking to someone else who's walking alongside him. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. Many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. Fill my heart with joy when their grain and new wine abound. Just a few points there in the passage. He tells them that they need to tremble and not sin when they're on their bed. Search your heart and be silent. Don't curse God. Don't rebel. Sometimes we need to just tell someone that's going through difficulties, wait. Be patient. Wait on the Lord and act. We need to offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. You know what that means? That means just do what you're supposed to do. Do what God expects, what God asks of you. You know, there's people that say, well, I'll give it a try, but if he doesn't answer me by, about 3 o'clock this afternoon, forget it. Just keep on. Keep on keeping on. God will in His time work. The time to do the will of God is now. That's called living by faith. Living by faith. This is who God is. This is what He wants. We need to do that, and we need to encourage each other to do it. David doesn't merely desire people who will pray for him in his need. He recognizes he's got to pray for them too. You ask people to pray for you, how many of them are you praying for? David takes that responsibility seriously. To pray for and encourage those who are walking along him. And he even admits, God, I need you to help me. Look at that when he says there in verse 7. Fill my heart with joy when their grain and new wine abound. You know what he's saying there? God, would you help me to be happy when someone else has a good thing happen to them? Sometimes we're not very good about that, are we? In fact, it becomes a source of contention with God. Lord, look at that. Look at him. Look at that new truck. Look at that promotion. Look at that blessing. It's always someone else. David recognizes that, no, I've got to be happy for those who are walking alongside me. I'm going to celebrate God's blessing upon them because my day is going to come. It seems elementary, but evidently it's a problem for us. Paul repeats the same sort of instruction in Romans 12:15. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. We're not in this alone. So look and find and help. Pray for those who are alongside us. And then last, David sets the fourth point of his compass. The last part of his orientation of where he's going to head. And that point, he says, is found within. Look at verse 8. In peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Notice that David doesn't spend any time whatsoever in that passage asking how he feels. His feelings are beside the point. Instead, his inner condition is established not on how he feels at the moment, happy, bored, tired, frustrated, angry, whatever. It's not how he feels at the moment, but it's who holds him. Within, he comes back to that righteous, loving God who is above him, who will not forget him, will not let him go. You alone, O God, make me dwell in safety. Perhaps it would help us to think again of the picture of the compass for just a moment. And we talk about above being our spiritual north star, our north, right? We've got our direction. We know which way is north. Which I'm going south right now, I know it. But then you think about that needle that's tracking north. And if you turn it and you look at it and you get that thing pointing north, where's the other end of that same needle pointing? Right back at you. Right back at you. The last part of our understanding is that God, you are faithful, you are true, you're my North Star, I can count. I can rest in you. I can't help reading that and thinking about it, but remember a story about Jesus early in his ministry. It had been a long day of ministry, and he was with the disciples. They were in a boat. They were out on the Sea of Galilee. And since a storm came up, and the disciples, they were all frightened. Some of them are seasoned fishermen, and they're scared to death. But Jesus is where? He's asleep on a cushion in the back of the boat. They finally shake him and wake him up and say, Lord, don't you care if we're going to drown? He stands up, tells the waves to be still, the winds to cease, and it becomes calm. And he looks at them and he says, why are you afraid? He had an inner peace that wasn't based in that situation on what was going on around him. It was based on the fact he knew the Father. And the Father would not let him go. Don't miss the need in your times of turmoil, your times of worry, anxiety, that it's time to get out that compass and reestablish your spiritual bearings. First of all, establish, number one, above. The loving God, who is righteous and faithful, who is not going to let you go. Second, recognize that off to one side, there's going to be those who are against you. And they are against what you're trying to do. They're doubters, they're discouragers. And they might have the best of intentions, but they're dragging you down. Third, remember you're not alone. You've got those who are alongside you. They're trying to walk that same path with you. And sometimes they're going to encourage you. Sometimes, like Psalm 4, you need to be the encourager. And when something good happens to them, praise God for that. Don't get big. Relax. Remember that as you think about yourself, your own situation, what you need to measure is not how do I feel right now, how much is in my pocketbook right now, but who is my God? And what is the commitment He's making? He has said, I will never let you go. Again, on this side of the cross, on this side of Jesus' sacrifices, Becky has so beautifully portrayed for us in song. We have so much more of an evidence of the nature of our God than even David knew in his time. He is faithful. He is true. And He has a plan for us, and that plan involves a personal faith in Jesus Christ as our Savior and our Lord. That He went to that cross to pay the price, to make us right with a holy God. And He offers us eternal life, starting right now when we open our hearts to Him. Today, you need to open your heart to Jesus. You need to say yes to His invitation. I'd love to pray with you and talk with you about that next step of life, of following in believer's baptism, becoming a disciple, following Jesus as your Savior and Lord. We're going to stand and sing, and I'll be here at the front. I'd love to visit with you and pray with you as the Lord is working on your heart today. Let's do this.